Dear friends, welcome to another episode in the fantastic world of the military. In this video, we will discuss Israel's response to the strong Iranian attack carried out in the early hours between April 13th and 14th. Last Thursday, April 11th, when it became clear that Iran would attack Israel to avenge the Israeli strike in Syria, which eliminated the Iranian general responsible for coordination with the Lebanese group Hezbollah, the Israeli government informed that if such an attack were carried out from Iranian territory, then Israel would also be obligated to retaliate directly against Iranian territory. At that time, there were three scenarios involving a possible Iranian response, with one of those scenarios involving an Iranian attack in kind, targeting some important official or political member of the Israeli government in a governmental building. Another likely scenario involved indirect attacks through various Iranian vassal groups in the region, such as Hezbollah or even the Yemeni Houthis. And of course, there was the worst scenario, which was a direct Iranian attack against Israel, involving the launch of drones and missiles from Iranian territory, which is exactly what Iran did on the night between April 13th and 14th, launching over 300 missiles and drones, which only failed to cause major devastation in Israel thanks to Israeli defenses and its coordination with regional allies. Therefore, as Iran attacked from its territory, does this mean that Israel will attack Iran directly right after yesterday's attacks? The Iranian government released a note saying that their action was a response to the Israeli attack in Syria and that the matter was thereby settled. In other words, with those more than 300 missiles and drones launched against Israel, Iran said that both countries were finally even. However, the Iranians warned Israel, saying that if the Israelis responded to the attack, Iran would attack again. But this time, with much greater force, starting a vicious cycle with a high chance of plunging the entire Middle East into a terrible large-scale war. But even running this risk, during the night, while the Iranian attack was underway, the Israeli War Cabinet released a note stating that a military response against Iran was being studied that would be overwhelming. Yesterday during the Iranian attack, everything led to believe that Israel would fulfill its promise and attack Iran directly. But a few hours after the end of the Iranian attack, and after intercepting 99% of the missiles and drones launched against Israel, news began to circulate indicating that Prime Minister Netanyahu had changed his mind about a retaliatory attack against Iran after a long telephone conversation with US President Joe Biden. The United States was crucial for Israeli defense against the Iranian attack, with sources stating that more than 30% of the Iranian drones and missiles were shot down by American fighter jets operating in Syria and Jordan. Therefore, when President Biden called, the Israeli Prime Minister answered and likely listened very carefully. Of course, we do not know the details of that conversation, but it is believed to have revolved around what Biden has publicly expressed several times, which is his concern about seeing the Middle East plunge into a terrible large-scale war. A war with the potential to directly affect the lives of millions of people in countries like Israel, Lebanon, Jordan, Syria, Iraq, and Iran, and to indirectly affect the lives of billions around the planet, impacted by increases in the price of oil and fuel. An Israeli revenge attack would be potentially disastrous for Iran, with Israel having more than enough means for it, such as its Jericho ballistic missiles and its stealth F-35 fighters. But Iran also has a huge offensive capability. And indeed, many analysts agree that last night's attack, with 300 missiles and drones, represents only a fraction of Iran's entire offensive capability. In a scenario of total war, Iran would not attack with just 300 missiles and drones. There would be thousands, complemented by thousands of rockets and artillery fire launched by the Lebanese Hezbollah group against northern Israel, and ballistic and cruise missiles launched by the Houthis and Iranians against southern Israel. In such a scenario, tens of thousands of people in Israel, Iran, Lebanon, and Syria could be killed or wounded just in the first hours, with much greater casualties accumulating in a terribly long and exhausting war. A war with the potential to spread globally, since it could attract regional allies like the United States to Israel's side and Russia to Iran's side. This terrible prospect, combined with the strong pressure from the United States and the fact that the Iranian attack, despite being very strong and with the risk of causing the deaths of thousands of Israelis, did not result in significant damage or any fatal casualties, contributed to Israel, at least initially, moving away from the possibility of a direct military response against Iran. Ben Gantz, former Prime Minister of Israel and current member of the Israeli emergency government, informed last Sunday, April 14th, that Israel will form a large regional defensive coalition against the Iranian threat with the United States and other allied nations. Sources linked to the Israeli War Cabinet informed that Netanyahu's intention continues to be to respond to the Iranian attack, but not immediately or directly, and not in a vengeful manner, but rather in a calculated and strategic way, continuing and reinforcing the current Israeli strategy aimed at attacking and destroying Iranian interests in Syria, Lebanon, and Iraq, but without risking a large-scale war that, as I have shown here, interests no one. And if you are not yet subscribed to the channel, subscribe and activate the notification bell to not miss any news, criticisms, ideas, or suggestions. You can leave them in the comments.